Today, Gone Fishing is in Alberta's Rocky Mountains, fishing for Arctic grayling. TJ Schwanke is joined by his wife Kim at this scenic alpine lake just 50 miles from Calgary. Stay with us as the Schwankes go after some Bear Pond grayling.
Now I know why they originated that saying in Alberta, if you don't like the weather, stick around 5 minutes. Man, we left the parking lot, it was sunny and nice. All of a sudden it's raining, just about snowing. So unreal. Well, it's kind of nice you get the day off anyways. Kim's a veterinarian in Cochrane and she's got a pretty busy practice there and doesn't get a lot of time for stuff like this. So.
Yeah, I'm a part owner in a clinic there, so it keeps me pretty busy. We do both small and large animal and are still fairly steady, so it's nice to get these days off and get outdoors like this and do some fishing.
And I've heard it said before that we make the perfect fishing team. I know how to catch fish and she's got a job, so I can't always argue at that point.
Somebody's got to pay those bills.
Hey look, there's some fish rising over there.
Right on, let's get going.
All right. Okay, we just stopped in here at Bear Pond and I started fishing with a dry fly. I missed a few and just picked one up here. It looks like a nice little grayling. Now Bear Pond's the first pond. It's about a 10-minute hike up from the parking lot. It's not very far. It's quite a steep hill though. I know we were all huffing and puffing on the way up. So it's kind of interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, these fish are stocked in here and they're certainly not native to southern Alberta. But Plateau Mountain, which sits right up behind here, there's actually been fossil remains found of grayling. So it's kind of ironic that this is where they first decided to stock them, is where they were, you know, millions of years ago. Whoa! He's got to be the wildest fish. Fishing with dry flies, like I said, and that's the most fun way to fish them. It's not the way you always catch, the best way to catch them, but they're rising fairly good here. Get them in. They are the slipperiest fish on the face of the earth. So there's a Bear Lake grayling right there. There's the big dorsal fin that they're noted for. Try and hang on to him here. Now, the grayling don't actually spawn here in Bear Lake. At least they don't think they do. There's been a little indication there might be some going on, but the shore itself is very silted. And they started putting some artificial reefs in here. And now the fish in Big Iron Lake do spawn, and they're quite a self-sustaining population. They're actually thinking of starting to use some of the eggs from there for stocking other lakes in Alberta. Now this has been an experiment here in Alberta to see how these work. Most of the put and take lakes, which they call these stocked lakes, they've been stocking rainbows in, but it's fairly expensive to do that. So with these grayling, they can stock much higher numbers than, now when rainbow trout are stocked, they're usually 10 to 15 centimeters, where these ones here are only 1 centimeter when they're stocked. So it's a lot cheaper to stock and a lot more economical. And it's you know, it's a different fish for the anglers to catch, so it seems to be really catching on. And I think you're going to see a lot more lakes in southern Alberta stocked in the future. So I'm just going to let this one go and get back at it. Looks like there's just a mayfly hatch starting to happen here, and he took it right off the surface.
Originally they stocked this lake in 1985 and there was a lot of fishing pressure at that time, so they fished the lake almost completely out. The fish we're now catching are ones that were stocked in 87, and it's now totally a catch and release. So anything we catch we let back today. There's no live bait allowed, so that keeps a little bit more natural.
Where is he here? Oh, there he is.
He's coming.
Oh, nice
there we go.
Fish. You bet. About 11, 12-inch fish. All right. See if I can hold him here. Like I said, these are the slipperiest fish you'll ever try and hold. Oh, you had him hooked good.
Yeah, let TJ release it. Nice little grayling.
It's a little male. You see the colors on the fins here. The males, when they're spawning, they actually spawn the end of May, early June. And that's where we're fishing right now, is early June. Well, they don't actually spawn in Bear Pond. Like we said, the edges are so silted up they can't spawn. They do go through the motions, they deposit the eggs. Now it's just that the eggs don't hatch. So that's why the males, like I said, those pectoral fins and the dorsal fin will really color up on the males, and this is one of the prettiest times of year. And that was about an 11-inch fish. So as Kim said, that was probably from the 87 stocking. Now, when they first stocked these fish in here in 85, the lake was so full of food that the fish just grew at an alarming rate. They couldn't believe it. Now, the subsequent stockings are growing a little slower because a lot of that feed has been eaten out of here. So you're finding the maximum size of fish in here is about 14 inches. And that's a fairly decent fish. I think in a few years you'll probably see the Alberta record coming out of one of these southern lakes just because it's a little warmer down here and the fish have a chance to grow a little faster. So looks like these mayflies are really hatching. Let's get out there and see if we can get another one.
Yeah, that'd be kind of nice.
Hey, Kim. Another
one.
Wow, he's coming right at me. Another male. Oh, this one's got a huge dorsal fin on him. Really pretty. Okay. Now these grayling, when we first came here, they were feeding fairly close to shore, but they've kind of moved out, so you pretty well have to wade for them here. And there we go. That's a little bigger fish too. You notice I have a pair of neoprene waders on, and they're sure the way to go. And they just keep you nice and warm. You notice I have this belter on here, and that's just for safety. That if you happen to do fall down, then your waders won't fill up. Look at the dorsal fin on that one.
That's a really nice little fish.
It is.
A little bit better than the last ones we've been catching.
Yeah, that's about a 12-inch fish. Just caught him in the top lip.
There's fish rising all behind you right now.
They are so slippery, it's unbelievable. Now, as you mentioned, grayling are primarily surface feeders, and that's what makes them such a prime candidate for fly fishing. And if you haven't tried fly fishing, they're an excellent fish to start on. Now, the problem being that most people don't have the access to grayling since they live in the northern part of the country. And that's the nice thing, what's happened down here in southern Alberta. And talking with the biologist, Jim Stelfox, this has kind of been his pet project down here, seeing how this works out. And he's trying to really push to get more of this happening. And they're talking about other lakes and ponds within Kananaskis country and throughout southern Alberta. So I really hope to see it happen. It's not very often you get to catch an exotic fish like this, and grayling really are an exotic fish. And so, like I say, we're an hour and a half from Calgary. It's unbelievable. If you haven't got out to try this, you got to do it. And the scenery around here is incredible too. Now, wading gives you the luxury of having the room to back cast. So just a couple of tricks when you're first learning to fly fish. And I'm not the best fly fisherman in the world, and I don't claim to be, but I can give you a few tips to help you cast. Now, when everyone casts, they seem to want to use their wrist to do all the action. And that's not what you want to do. You almost want to lock that wrist and let it all come from the elbow. Now just let that line go out behind you, and don't be in a hurry to bring it ahead. Everyone always wants to go like this when they're fly fishing. It's just a nice, slow, fluid motion. The slower and easier you make it, the further you'll cast. So just keep your loose line in your left hand. Let it go out behind you, pay a little bit out behind you, a little more out the front, put a little more off. Just take your time. You don't have to really whip it, and don't use that wrist. It's all in the elbows. If you keep that arm straight, that's what's going to help you lay out. Now just right at the end, you pull it out, power ahead, and just kind of drop off at the end and just let that fly roll out naturally. You don't want it slapping down hard on the water. You just want it to come down nice and easily, just like a natural fly would land on there. So if you've got the luxury of back casting, I mean, you can definitely cast a lot further like this than you can with the roll cast. But if you don't, that roll cast works equally as well.
Hey, this one's a fighter.
This is the first time you fish a grayling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually. I've heard they're neat little fish to catch. I'm really enjoying it.
Now Kim had been using a brown fly there, and I just gave her a white fly that I've been using, and bang, it would take about 2 seconds.
Oh, I just barely touched the water.
Hey, that's a nice one.
Now if I can only get a hold of him. He's gonna give me a bath before I get out of here.
They're so slippery too, it's unbelievable. Wait till you try and grab a hold of them.
Well, if I could reach him.
I gave Kim my waders.
These are great.
The fish seemed to be rising a little further out, so I gave her my waders, and bang, she just had one right away. Just give yourself a little more line there.
I think I'm gonna have to. I'm kind of caught in my rod though here.
It's a lot of fun catching them on dry flies, though. It's so visual.
Well, it's not neat to watch them grab for your fly.
Yeah, and you can
That's
see
the
all
exciting
around Kim, they're
part.
just going crazy.
Okay, let's try this one more time.
You hang on to them.
There we go. Whoa. This
Is that
fly is...
Get the hook out.
Well, if he'd hold still a minute.
We're just using number 12 and number 14 dry flies, so they're a fairly small fly. They seem to be a little more aggressive. They were taking a little tentatively before. They'd actually come up and grab it, but we were missing quite a few. But it seems every time you get a hit, we're catching one now.
Just letting this little guy go.
All right. Oh, I missed one.
Oh,
Watching you, I should have been watching my fly.
yeah.
Well, his fishing's unreal, Kim.
Another nice one.
They just started. They're going crazy here. They're just rising everywhere. There's a
Yeah,
big
you can just
mayfly
see
now.
them rising everywhere.
And now, talking to the biologist, he was saying that the catch rate here is about 2.5 fish per hour, which is absolutely incredible. The best high mountain lakes right now are about 1.5 fish per hour, and most of the put and take rainbow trout lakes are 0.3 fish per hour. So this is unbelievable, and another nice fish.
Oh, look at them.
Love it. Look at the dorsal on him.
Yeah. They've
Yeah.
got to be some of the prettiest fish to just look at.
So it looks like this experiment's working out really good. It's providing a lot of angling, hours and enjoyment for the people. There's a lot more fish being caught, and the nice thing is, everyone lets them go, so we have the chance to catch them again. But yeah, these are beautiful fish.
Yeah.
Oh, you just had them rise.
Oh, no, he was beside my fly. Too busy looking at your nice fish.
Beautiful. Okay, as you can see, there isn't much room behind me, and most people have a lot of difficulty fly fishing when conditions are like this. Now, I just want to show you what's called a roll cast, and that'll help you in a situation like this. Now, the thing is, pull up some slack lines, so you got a little bit here, and just lift your rod tip really slowly until that line's just hanging below you, and just kind of roll it right over and flip it out. And there I cast about 30 feet right there. So if you're ever in a situation where you don't have a lot of room behind you, it's a matter really simple. Just pull that line up, then lift your rod tip straight up vertical, flip it over and let that line go. That's all there is to it, and that'll really help you in a situation where you've got no room to backcast. And I know a lot of these mountain lakes are like that. The trees go right down to the shore, and there's absolutely no room to cast at all. I just want to talk a little about the equipment we're using. We're both using 8.5-foot fly rods, and the one Kim's using's got a 6-weight line on it, and this one I'm using is an 8-weight. You probably only need a 6-weight for up here unless it gets really windy. Then it's nice to have that little bit heavier line to cast. And we're using 9-foot leaders and 2-pound test line leaders. It's really important. We're using the small flies. Yeah, I really got him hooked. Drove it right through that top lip. So like I say, we're using 2-pound test leaders, so that gives that fly the most natural drift. And we're not catching real big fish here that you have to worry about breaking, and makes it a lot more fun to play them anyways. Nice release. They are
They're too slippery. You can't do a good release.
And the reason for the 9-foot leader is it just gets that tiny fly a long ways away from your fly line. Seems these fish are pretty easy to put down if you keep casting over their head. So if they see that fly line drifting over top of them, they're a little less likely to bite. So if you got that longer leader. Now these leaders are tapered. They're quite a bit heavier at the end where it ties onto the line, and then they taper right down to 2-pound test line. The reason for that is that's what helps lay your fly out and get it away from your fly line. So nothing real specialized. Like, this is typical of the gear you use anywhere in Alberta, not just here at Bear Pond. It'll serve you anywhere you go. So you want about, like I say, a 6 to 8 weight fly rod, about 8.5 to 9 feet, and that'll get you through most situations. And this is a floating fly line we're using here because we're using dry flies. Now for fishing nymphs or streamers or something like that, it may be useful to go to a sink tip or a sinking line, but a floating line, you'll be able to fish it in probably 75 to 80% of applications.
Well, we've got another one on here.
Well, you're doing really good.
Yeah, not too bad. I'm not much of a fly fisherman. I don't get much chance to get out. And it seems when I do, I'm not always that adept at it. but it's sure nice coming here.
Just a jumping. All right. Now, Kim and I do a lot of fishing together. We fish tournaments quite a bit, walleye tournaments competitively, and we've done fairly well. We're probably one of the top husband and wife teams, and Kim's a good fisherman, but like she says, she doesn't fly fish a lot. We do mostly walleye fishing, a lot of fishing out of the boat, so it's kind of nice to come up and just spend a relaxing day rather than all the competitive walleye fishing, isn't it?
This is a real experience for me. The chance to fly fish and then such neat little fish, and like you say, there's not the pressure. This is more of an enjoyment day.
Yeah, you can just come up here and have some fun, and I'm starting to believe that 2.8 fish per hour number now. I think we're more than outdoing that right now.
There's a nice little fish, really red on the sides.
Oh, see ever? Look at the colors.
Yeah.
They're so iridescent.
Yeah, I was just going to say, right along the side of his face is just really shiny. Look, there's a very nice release.
Really slippery too.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Hey Kim, look at the guy in the belly boat over there. You know what that is? It's a belly boat or a float tube is what they're called. And it's a big truck inner tube inside a fabric covering. And there's a little suspension seat in there where the guy sits. And they got some pockets in there and a backrest, and it's like a little boat you can get out. And they're great for these high mountain lakes or alpine lakes where you have to hike into, because you just throw it over your shoulder and walk in. Now he's also wearing a pair of waders like these, a pair of neoprene waders, and he's got flippers on his feet. And that's how he powers it around the lake and steers it. Now the great thing about these neoprene waders is they keep you dry and warm, but also they're quite safe. Now I had a really bad experience with a pair of the regular chest type rubber waders. I was wading in the Bow River in October and slipped on a rock and went down. And actually the waders on me, and I went into a deep hole in the river. It was about 9 feet deep, and it took me right to the bottom. And I struggled and struggled and struggled. I couldn't get those waders off. And I'd pretty well given up on making it out of there. And luckily I got caught in a back eddy and kind of swung me into shore, and I was able to crawl up onto shore. I lost my fishing rod, all my tackle. So that day I went out and bought a pair of these neoprene waders. So if you're contemplating buying waders, don't look at anything else but the neoprenes. If you're wearing rubber chest waders right now, boy, be careful. They are the most dangerous thing you can wear. At least wear a belt with them. It helps keep some of the water out, but these are definitely worth the investment. You know, life's worth more than that for sure. Okay, I'd just like to show you a few things here that'll apply to any fly fishing situation, and just some tips that may help you a little bit. Now the connection from your fly line to your fly is what we call a leader. And it's just monofilament, but it's actually tapered. It's quite heavy at the end where it attaches to your fly line, and then it tapers down quite thin. And you'll notice there's always a number and then an X. And this is a 5X, so it's 4-pound test line. This one here is a 3X, and it's 6.5. So the lower the number, the higher the breaking strength. Now you usually want to, for beginning fly fishermen, I'd suggest about a 7.5-foot leader. As you get more proficient at it, you may want to go to 9, 11. I've had situations where the water was so clear and the fish were so spooky, you had to go to 16 feet. So that's what, now there is special leaders for dry fly and wet fly fishing. You do, if you're dry fly fishing, you want a dry fly leader, and it'll float. If you're wet fly fishing or nymphing or something where your fly sinks, you need a leader that'll allow it to sink. Now, let's just talk about flies a little bit. Now, I tie my own flies, and I find a lot of pleasure in that. It's not a big investment to get into. Now, let's start with the basic dry fly. And that's one we were using quite extensively today. Now, what makes it dry is it floats on top. And there's hackle spun around here, and there's also hackle on the tail, and it's usually quite a light body. And what that hackle is, it's actually feathers from the neck of a chicken. But these are special feathers designed for this purpose. And what we do with the dry flies is we put a silicone on them, and you just silicone that hackle around the collar and around the tail, and that helps them float a little higher and it'll float longer. And after you catch a fish, it's a good idea to just silicone them again. Now you hear a lot of people talk about wet flies, and maybe you're not sure what the difference is. Now a wet fly may be designed to imitate a nymph or a minnow or a leech or something like that. They're kind of a general attractor pattern is what they are. Now this here's a woolly bugger, or a woolly worm, sorry. And it's a wet fly, and it actually sinks, and it's usually retrieved or it can be trolled. Now another fly that sinks is what we call a streamer, and they're usually tied with bucktail or something like that, and they're made to imitate a minnow, and they're retrieved in a much faster manner or can be trolled as well. And then the final and probably the toughest one to fish is the nymph, and it represents the fly before they actually hatch. This is what lives under the water and becomes a fly. And they're usually fished quite slowly. If you're fishing them in current, you want to let them drift very naturally. In a lake situation like this, you may retrieve them slowly, but like I say, this is probably the hardest pattern you can learn to fish. It takes the most finesse and the most skill. Now, a couple other useful little items. Just a pair of nail clippers for clipping off your line if you have to trim your hackle. And just a little tiny pair of hemostats for pulling those flies out of the fish. It makes it a lot easier on them. And one other thing, a pair of polarized sunglasses. Now, I know the fish we were catching today, a lot of them are really shallow, and you could see them cruising through there, and you could actually watch them come up and take your fly. Not only does it make you a more effective fly fisherman, it also adds to the enjoyment. One other item you may want to consider is just a little trout net. Now, this is a fraybill net, and it's got a no-tangle mesh, and it's actually designed to be quite easy on the fish. Now, I like the black nets myself. It seems to spook the fish a little less when you're netting them. This is a nice compact one. You just hook it on the back of your vest and away you go. So if you do catch a bigger fish or you don't want to handle the fish too much, you can just put them in here and it doesn't hurt them at all. Well, we finished our day at Bear Pond, and we're just filling out these voluntary angler reports, and they're creel cards. And what they do is they let the fisheries people know how the angling success has been here, the size of the fish, and they give some indication of how many people are fishing here and utilizing this resource. And they take all this data, and at the end of the year they evaluate it and to see if this type of fishery is useful, how the fish are doing, and things like that. So if you come across these creel card reports when you're out fishing, and you only find them in the mountain or alpine lakes, it's very important that you fill these cards out, and fill them out honestly, because it's the results from these that will determine the fishing here in the future. Put them in there. Well, we never did make it into Big Iron Lake today. We stopped at Bear Pond first off, caught so many fish, it was unbelievable. We decided not to hike all the way in. I'd sure like to thank you for coming along with me today. It's been great.
Oh, I've had a great day Arctic grayling fishing here, and until next time, we're gone fishing.